Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to part 2 of the Berserk discussion. My name is Lynden Burton, and I'm joined by my guy, the brains in this series, the partner in this series, Mr. Peter McGinn of What Do You Say Anime. Pete, I'm so happy that we're doing this series, and I was telling like the podcasters that I pod with, I was like, yo, like I love podding with y'all, but I love podding with Pete too. Like me and Pete have really great conversations. And like you are great at what you do, and I'm glad we get to do this series, and I'm excited for some of the stuff we have planned for the future. But glad to be back and doing part 2 of this series.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's always a great conversation with you, Lynn. We really seem to like bounce off of each other, I think, really well. And I think in Berserk, this is no exception. I think our conversation from part 1 was done really well. And I'm looking forward to like really jumping into what we didn't cover in the first part, in the second part, because what we saw from before, it all leads up to where we are now.
Yes, it does. And like I was telling you off air, I reread some of the stuff leading up for this video, and I'm excited to discuss it because I know you've read this a lot more than me. So this for me is going to be like a sponge, asking you questions, learning different things, and then seeing how my perspective varies towards yours. And that's where we'll find the gold in that new person reading versus the veteran and finding out like the different things that we see. But before we get started, you promised the people that you had a new tattoo. You must show them the new tattoo that was given for all of those who saw part 1.
Got 2 surprises.
Ooh, okay.
The first one is I finally got my collector's edition of the Japanese volume 41.
Holy shit.
Yeah, so I'm really happy that I was able to find a copy of this.
That is fucking amazing. Holy shit.
That is never coming out of its wraps.
I was just about to ask you that. Like that, I feel like that's gonna be worth some money. Are you unwrapping it? Like I know you never sell your collection, but you know.
No, and I want to get framed. There's so many things I want to get. And then since the last time I was able to get my Mob Psycho tattoo on my forearm.
That is so badass.
This is the first of 2 more that I got coming for my anime/manga sleeve. I got the back of my forearm in June, and then the back of my bicep in July. And that's going to complete about 90% of my arm. So I'm really looking forward to showing that off.
I think that as much as I love your Berserk tattoo, I think the Mob one might be my favorite one. That's so badass.
This one is I'm really happy with how this came out. I went to a different artist, and she knocked it out of the park, and I'm going to her again in June, and we're all make magic.
Yeah, she killed it. And speaking of that, are you excited for I know I saw your tweet, but I just gotta ask, are you excited for part 3?
Hey, you cut out, what was that?
Oh, my bad. I said speaking of your tattoo,
your mic's broken or something.
Is my stuff is it tripping? Can you hear me?
Can't hear you.
You can't hear me? What is going on? Hold on, Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I don't know what was going on, but all right. Anyway, I said, since you have that amazing tattoo, real quick before we get started, are you excited for part 3? It's the only poster that they can see on my walls, Mob. I am ecstatic and ready for this season 3 of Mob Psycho.
Yeah, it's in my top 10 anime of all time. I specifically never read the manga past season 2 because I was just going to assume it was going to get a season 3, and I'm glad that my gamble kind of paid off because I've been itching for some more Mob content, and just seeing like the preview video came out and it just looks wonderful. I can't wait to see where the story goes from here.
Yes, I agree. And I did the same exact thing that you did. I didn't read anything past season 2. I was like, I'm just going to wait. And I pray it's worth the wait, but I know it will be because Mob Psycho hasn't disappointed us yet. But let's talk about something else that doesn't disappoint. Berserk. So we're into part 2 now. The last thing we discussed was basically Griffith becoming a god hand and becoming doing the eclipse. We see Casca, the brutality that happens to her. Guts now is trying to find not trying to find a new family yet. He is now alone in this, just with Casca, and now we're beginning post Black Swordsman arc. Where do you think we should begin, Pete? I'll let you, because with the first part I knew where to begin. With this one, where do you think we should begin? With themes or art or wherever you think that's where we're starting?
I think we should start with the next arc, just because I think this is what probably most people consider the weakest point of Berserk, which is the conviction arc.
Gotcha.
However, like being the worst arc in a 10 out of 10 series for me personally is still like a 9 out of 10. I think the conviction arc, it's broken up into 2 parts. We have the Lost Children, which is where we meet Rosine, I think her name is. I forgot her.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
We meet her and the fairies and the children, and after that we get to like what I feel is like the real part of the conviction arc is when we meet like Mogus and kind of like the sex cult and the more of the religious backtone of Berserk is really heavily influenced here. And I think a lot of people don't find that the Lost Children arc of the conviction arc really has substance, is what I've seen from the complaints, because a lot of the like the characters and sort of like the impact of the arc doesn't really have like a lasting effect in Berserk compared to what some of the other arcs do. And I guess in your opinion, like, do you feel like that's kind of like justified, or like do you have any like thoughts? Because when I think conviction, I think more of the second half of
Then the children.
Then the Lost Children, more of the religious undertones, kind of the reuniting Guts handling Casca, I would say, more of like, instead of like him leaving it to Rickert and Erica, Casca is now a part of the journey.
The squad.
Yeah.
No, 100%. And look, with the conviction thing with me, I think the children portion of it, like all the stuff with Rosine and being with Jill, him and Puck and all of that, I feel like that is because the way I look at part 2 is Guts is broken, and I feel like it's about building Guts back up. And by being with Jill, I think Guts gets to not necessarily have childlike wonder, but have like this sense of innocence back in his life. That's kind of how I look at it.
100%, because when you see it in like Black Swordsman, this is more of like a year-long period of him sort of
just killing people. Like,
just kind of being on like a murderous rampage and sort of getting that empathy back when he has like a connection with Jill and more of like the children of the village that gets taken over by like the fairies and stuff like that.
And we know what happened with him as a child and how he hates when children get abused and misused. And it's like, oh, well, he has to step in. He has to do something about this.
Yeah, I think it shows like a new light on his character, where is he still the like Terminator in terms of like powerhouse? Absolutely. But like, you know, in this arc, he's not doing it really for himself. He's not out for revenge during this part. He's there. He forms a connection with Jill and sort of like he does like save the city. He kind of has like remorse when he finally kills like the lead fairy and burns like their whole like civilization down, because
God gets her down.
It's a theme in Berserk where you see these kids living in this like town and they are in horrible conditions. They're poor, famine, stuff like that. And then when they are like these fairies, like they kind of have like a better life, even though they are sort of like apostles. They are sort of, well, Rosine is an apostle. She sacrificed her parents in order to become this like fairy queen. But like, she is kind of giving them a better life. And it's where you have this conflict, and we have it later on in this.
Is free will better than this controlled like hatred situation? Yeah, no, 100%. I want to ask you, how do you feel about Guts burning up those cocoons of the fairies who aren't there yet? Is that it? I feel like that kind of falls in that topic as well. Like, they didn't have a choice yet to make, even though we've seen other like elves and fairies make those, well, not fairies, elves make those like bad decisions. Do we think they would have made the bad decisions? The assumption is yes, but like it brings that moral question up as well too.
It does, and then it's like, it's funny how you see two sides of Guts in this, because he has no really remorse
at all
for the fairies. He kills their leader. He burns all of them alive essentially, and he does. But at the same time, he's doing it to protect Jill. So it's like two sides of like, these people aren't even like aware of their situation.
And then the crazy thing is, right when as he's about to like end it all, Jill's pop shoots him. And do you think that's because of what you're saying about how, even though it's a shitty life, it's still better than being out in the wilderness of like these creatures and whatnot?
It's really hard to say, especially in the context of Berserk, because it's a lot of the times it's famine, misery,
Yeah.
being broke, and it's like, is that like free will worth being all that, or move away from that lifestyle in a sense? And we see that in Falconia too in the next arc, where this is where the did Griffith do anything wrong debate comes into,
Where he makes that city for those people.
where we get Falconia.
Yeah.
And it's wild. We can get to that when we get to that arc, but
For sure.
I think it's a very interesting conversation where like the stemming of the question, did Griffith do anything wrong, really resonates.
Yeah, because I'll ask you, because I do have some questions about that. The one thing I have before we get off this Lost Children, where do you think Rosine ranks among like Guts enemies? Not as like the arc itself, because we talked like it may be the weakest arc, but there's still purpose. But how do we feel about Rosine as like an evil villain, powers and everything?
I think she's great. It's a unique twist on like the current antagonist or villain in front of Guts, where before the apostles that he fights are big, giant, scary monsters.
Zod.
And you see Zod, you see the apostle in the forest, along with when he fights like actual humans and stuff like that as well. This is unique. It is a young girl who it's like like the road to like, what's it called? The road to evil is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
Like Rosine has like a terrible childhood. She's beaten and all this stuff. She sacrifices her parents to become this person that she is now. To try to
save things, but it just turns out she gets corrupted by what she does.
Yeah. And so I think it's a unique character in Berserk. If I had like rank it, I think she's like a mid-tier like villain.
That's where I have her. I don't have her at the bottom. Like I saw some people, because when I was on Reddit, like looking up like villains and like just doing my Berserk research, a lot of people had her as like one of the worst antagonists, and I'm like, I kind of have her in the middle for reasons that you said.
I don't think she's bad. I think she's kind of just overshadowed by the arc
everything
itself.
Else. Yeah, that's
especially what comes next with Mogus, who I think is a fantastic villain. I'm a huge fan of like putting in these religious undertones in a story that's like this, because in medieval times, or like the Crusades or something like that, where wars were religiously driven.
Base, yeah.
And we see that in this conviction arc where, if you don't side with the church, you're a witch. If you don't like ride with us, you're going to die. Like everything is based around God. And it's one thing that where I think it kind of saves the conviction arc, where I think like the Lost Children is like a 7 out of 10 arc. I think it's okay. I think it serves its purpose, but I think I do think that you could probably take it out of Berserk and it would still be like the same impact, where the next part with Mogus and the church is completely different. It changes everything, especially Guts as a character, where now we are introduced to him protecting Casca. He realizes his mistake, that he can't leave everything to Rickert and Erica, and this is
he has to take it on himself.
Yeah, and he's sick of seeing Casca in the state that she's in, and so he takes it upon himself, where revenge is still on his mind, but now the number one thing is getting Casca back to who she was. And you see that throughout till the end of essentially Berserk. That's his main goal. And it's one thing where people want more content, but Guts by the end of it succeeds in his goal. And I think the conviction arc and how it starts with this whole journey, brand new journey of him and Casca, and eventually down the road adding more to the cast, is just a wonderful addition to Berserk.
Yep, I agree. And then like I like the relationship with the peoples that he meets to take him to like it's the Elven city, if I'm not mistaken, to where they try to fix Casca's mind.
Yeah, that's in Fantasia, so that's in the last arc. Yeah,
and that's with Farnese. Yeah, and then there's, I forget the other characters who's in there, but I really like Farnese.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to talk about like really the whole cast and characters,
yeah, we can.
we are introduced to like a
Farnese in this, right here.
Yeah, a preview of Farnese from the first part. And Black Swordsman, we get introduced to Farnese, and this is where we sort of see Farnese change her ideals on who she is as a person, because her father is, I think her father's the king, and as a child she kind of has like a mental breakdown, and she kills her mom.
I believe so.
She burns her mom alive. I think that's what it was. But I know for sure her like sidekick, bodyguard Serpico, sort of forces Serpico to burn his mother alive, because they rule her, they like see her as like a heretic or a witch or something along those lines. And we see Farnese at the end of the conviction arc.
Her face is shaking. She's crushed.
Her faith is shaken, and she sort of, instead of following the path like her father told her to, she's kind of going on her own, and she's super intrigued with Guts. She's never really like seen someone like him, and I mean, there is to a point where Guts kidnaps her, but in his defense, they kidnapped him. So it's like, what do you say? We get one.
Not to cut you off, my bad. I was getting to, because right after that it leads into the with Mogus and everything, but by Guts seeing the vision from that demon child. How do you feel about Guts in his relationship with the demon child?
Yeah, so it's kind of, I think it's sort of confirmed that this demon child during the conviction arc is Casca and Guts'
Griffith.
child.
Oh, it's Guts' child. It's not Griffith's child.
No, sorry, Griffith's child.
Okay,
yeah. Casca and Griffith's child.
Yeah, through the rape.
It's definitely, Casca's definitely the mom. It's hard to say, because like Guts did have sex with Casca.
He did. Yeah, you're right.
And, because when we get to the Moonlight child, that's like definitely Guts and Casca's kid. So it's confusing in terms of like the pregnancy area, but we see that the child protects Casca in the moment where like the tower is falling apart, and it protects Casca in a couple different ways. With he sort of he sacrificed himself to the Bailet to kind of like stop the whatever is happening,
the situation from going on. Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to see like that aspect. It's a little, this is like where we kind of like really see, well, I shouldn't say that we really see it, because we kind of see it in the beginning of the conviction arc, but like more of the supernatural, the more of like the otherworldly elements in it,
the other side, or what is it? It's like the astral planes.
The astral worlds, because we sort of see it with the apostles. That's like our only introduction, is that we see like these giant creepy freaks, but we don't really see like magic, I would say. And this is like the first time we really see more magic based, and just that whole the whole like scene with Guts fighting Mogus and like his apostles, I guess I'll put it in that way. It's just a great way to like end this arc. It's one of my favorite,
I like the city that they do it in Albion or whatever.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite like fights. We talked about this before in terms of visual storytelling, but how Guts defeats Mogus is by jamming his sword not through him but through his mouth, because Mogus is more of this, he's the spoken word of like this religion, and like him silencing him, stabbing him.
I never thought about that before. That's awesome. Okay, so killing him through his power.
Yeah.
So Pete, that means if anybody ever tries to come kill us, they have to cut off our tongue.
Yeah. It's like that style of visual storytelling where you miss that, but like I think it adds to what Miura is trying to like is trying to say in this. And I mean, when you find out these like little things, it's just it's incredible. And it's one of my favorite fights in Berserk, and just in general, just like the meaning, what it all sets up for going forward as well, because this
right here, for the people wondering, it's like straight up in
I guess through the neck or something.
The neck,
that.
Where it's vocal cord.
it's definitely supposed. Okay, I guess it's not like confirmed, but to me, that's like what it's supposed to represent. It's like he's not stabbing him through the chest or something like that. He's hitting him in a specific target, and that's the because Mogus is that character. He is, you if you don't follow my word, like you die, and like he is the word of God.
How do you feel about Mogus's form? Like, do you think does that play into any of this like religious stuff that he's spewing? Like how he gets almost this crocodile like scale on him almost, or do you think that's just Miura just cooking, like saying
I think that's Miura cooking because like being an apostle, it doesn't seem like it's like set like what you are going to be. I feel like there might be something into it where I missed it or I don't know, but maybe something with the scales represents something that I missed. But I think it's just like, I mean, he's an apostle. He sacrificed something in the past to become this like worldly like demon essentially, and he uses religion as fear and is able to control it with that his fear. That's how he gains his power, and it's just a great character.
No, he is. Mogus is up there for me. It's probably like I'd say top 5. Like he's in that top 5 range.
He's probably 2 for me. I really liked him. I liked when he's not in like his apostle form. I'm a big fan of like him using his like Bible as a weapon. I think like that is just like adds like a touch to it, but also like his character where like you see him.
I like his design with that little hat and his like his religious garb, and his face almost looks like Stonehenge.
He's a big boy. I'm a big fan of like when he's like repenting and he's just like slamming his head into the ground. And I because people like do that as like a form of repenting or like saying like, yeah,
and with the
like
tears falling down his eyes, just where he's like, it just the ultimate like just sad cry face, this face right here.
Yeah, he just like resonates like sociopath, psychopath, along with what Miura envisioned in these like demon like characters.
And his gimp friends match him too.
Yeah. I call them his apostles. I don't know what they're actually referenced as.
Oh no, they're called his disciples. I just called them
disciples. Yeah,
his gimps because I mean they look like some gimps.
Yeah, and I thought like just like the whole style of this conviction arc was really well done, especially when we see like the side cult of not just a religion but like the sex cult that we see where people are like behind closed doors are like a different person. And we see that where like they don't practice what they preach. And
their true selves come out like through like their desires and whatnot.
Yeah, and that whole thing sparks something with the Holy Knights with Farnese and trying to like come together with Mogus, and that's kind of like how that battle takes place, and that's kind of like how Farnese joins
the crew.
Yeah, like indirectly, since they want to capture Guts as a prisoner, but she's like not in her right mind, maybe is the right way to put it, because she is all over the place. You see it with like she like beats herself up to like get off. Like you see her like her sexual fantasies is like pain.
Yeah, you're right.
And she sees Guts like, I don't know, maybe it's because Guts is always in pain that like she finds him like amusing and something else.
Maybe that's why she relates to him in that
100%.
So now are we getting to the Millennium Falcon art?
Yeah, which I saw a tweet today that says like nothing is ever going to come close to short is like Millennium Falcon. I think the initial or like the real is called like the Falcon of the Millennium Empire arc. But I just thought that, like that title is such a cool arc name. But like because Miura he's a huge Star Wars guy, and we see Star Wars references in Berserk. People just shorten it to Millennium Falcon, sort of as like an homage to like his love for Star Wars. That's along with sort of just shortening what the actual arc is.
Now I have a question. Griffith is this god now. Why is he going back with this girl, Charlotte, and all of this in this arc? Like, why is this happening now? Like, is this like just his ego of like, it couldn't happen before, so now I'm going to force it to happen?
Yeah, I mean, he still wants his dream of running a kingdom.
True.
And at the time, Charlotte's dad, the king, is still alive. And in order to become the king of like Midland and where they are now, that he needs Charlotte in order to do so. That was his plan originally, and then he fucked up and had sex and got caught. Now he's back, and now he's back to sort of like unfinished business, and he is here to essentially take Midland as his.
Yep, and turn into that city, and then have like all these refugees from all the humans, whatever, live there.
And then we get the conflict where there's a plague that's broken out in Midland, and the king passes away. And we were kind of hinted at before, but now that we really get it, is the Kushians, the Kushian Empire thinks, okay, the king is dead.
Now we're gonna come invade.
They're in disarray. Like, let's take over Midland, and that kind of starts the beginning of the Millennium Falcon arc. And I love the Kushians. They're such a unique
I didn't expect them to come in. I didn't expect them to come in the story at this point. Like, to me, it was such a shocker when I first read it to see Griffith going to war with these humans again. It goes back to like what you said about how he still just wants to be a king, even though he's a god. Like, to me, I think that's very interesting. Like, you are over these people. Like, you are a being that has surpassed them. Why are these humanly roles and desires all you still crave and to obtain when you surpass that? And I never thought we would see a war between Griffith again, let alone a non-supernatural war.
Yeah, because it's wild, because it kind of starts out as you think it's just like one nation versus one nation, and then you find out like Ganesha, the leader of the Kushians, is an apostle.
Yep.
And so in the beginning, it's like nation on nation, and the Kushians take over the city of, what's it called? One second. Wyndham. Wyndham is the main city where like Charlotte is and stuff like that. You see Griffith save Charlotte with Zod. He like breaks open like the castle and picks Charlotte out of her bed, and they fly away. The Kushians take over. Griffith comes back with the Midland army along with apostles, and this is where we start to see the inclusion of like who Griffith is as like the new leader or the new general of Midland, that people are seeing apostles for the first time, but they're fighting alongside them because they are following Griffith. And then we see Ganesha sort of lose his mind and become this otherworldly being, and starts turning his own people into apostles.
Yeah,
they turn into like these like troll-like ogres,
and that would give him some of his power in this war.
Yeah, and and then we see some of the best art in Berserk period with this massive war of humans and apostles, going against the Kushians with their like mini apostles. I don't know what I'll call them like minions or something like that, where like they're no longer human. They're like these troll ogre like things, and just becoming what is, I mean, it's my favorite arc in Berserk for multiple reasons, but this war that breaks out is just insane.
And the other crazy thing about this is kind of, not only is it the reintroduction of Griffith, but this is kind of the part of the story where Guts is kind of on the back burner. Like you said, Guts' whole journey is to help Casca. It's not really fighting anymore, even though he does get the Berserk armor in this arc. He meets the witch Shret or Sharik. All that happens, and they go to I believe Puck's homeland to send Casca at this point.
Yeah, they're kind of just like chilling on a beach when this is all happening.
They're not even involved, but before this war does start, Griffith does see Guts again for the first time.
Yeah, this was at the swords. What's it called?
Hold on, I'll get the
like
name
the gravestones of swords. So Rickert, while he was waiting for Guts to come back, made this graveyard essentially for all the fallen people in the eclipse, and he mentions
the Hill of Swords.
Yeah, the Hill of Swords. He mentions that Rickert mentions to Guts that he sees like this white being on the hilltop, and Guts immediately is like, that's Griffith. Rickard doesn't know at this time that Griffith was responsible for
the eclipse.
Like, he doesn't know
doesn't.
that Griffith is a bad person.
Mm-hmm.
And you see Griffith and Zod on top of the mountain and their confrontation as well, and sort of just
Rickard stops Guts from hitting him too.
Yeah, because Griffith is everything to Rickard. Like, he doesn't know. Like, he's just happy that Griffith is alive.
And Griffith shows no care toward that Guts is doing any of this. He doesn't even like really acknowledge him, really.
Which is great, because later in this arc we see Rickard confront Griffith, and it changes everything with how Rickard views him. And it's something else. And we also get, in this arc, along with during the war, we get one of my favorite fights is Zod and Guts versus Ganesha, which is just insane.
Didn't think they would fight together, especially when you start the arc with them having a little clash.
Yeah,
like, Zod, I'm glad you're alive, Guts. Zod's just happy because that's his guy. Like, he sees him as some another blade, because at this point Zod is a blade for Griffith, and I guess he sees Guts as the former blade, and it's like, yeah, we can have that connection through being blades of this god hand.
Yeah, and they come to the conclusion, like, Zod can't defeat Ganesha by himself. Guts can't defeat Ganesha by himself. But maybe the two of them, like, in this moment, like, the biggest threat right now is this guy. And like, and Zod and Guts have like this agreement that they will duel, like, on even terms when it's time.
Oh, yeah,
they sort of like respect each other. Where like, yeah, I hate you, but I'm not gonna like backstab you. Like, they have this like unspoken.
There's a greater evil at hand right now.
That and like I don't know if it's like the honor among being like a warrior, where like, if you want to see, because they kind of have like, Zod has never been defeated. One reason why he's like so obsessed with Guts is because he was the first person
to live
and like hundreds of years to wound Zod. So Zod is like super infatuated with Guts, and Guts is just like, his like cold personality is just like, whatever, like, yeah, I'll fight you. Like, he doesn't really care as much. It's
more so just like, I'll do it just because, like, I'm a warrior. It's not the infatuation doesn't go both ways. It's more so like, I'm this warrior, and I'll live by this warrior code and maintain my honor, at least.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that, because there's some aspects where Guts doesn't play fair and he doesn't care. But I think, but that's still like I'll say like lowly peasants. But in the presence of Zod, it's completely different. It's like they both need to know who is stronger between the two, and they have like this like cheating, backstabbing, because Guts rides on Zod, and then like at any point he probably could have swung his sword and like decapitated Zod, but it wasn't worth it to him. And it's a really interesting dynamic that we see in Berserk with Guts as a character, and sort of Zod as a character too, as this, I don't know, honor amongst thieves or something.
Yeah, no, 100%. So all of that is great. They beat Ganesha. Shit is dope. But see, what interests me in this arc is the fact that Guts is forming this family again with the witch, with Farnese, Serpico, Riker, and Puck. Like, this it's this pseudo family's almost complete here at this point.
Yeah, we kind of skipped over it because of the war itself.
The awesome war.
Yeah. More along the lines of like, at this point, like, Guts is with Isidro, Serpico, Farnese, and Casca, and Sharik. And at this time, I think Guts has the Berserker armor.
Yeah, he's trying to get he's trying to learn how to control the Baroque.
Yeah,
the little face thing.
Yeah, he has. He has trouble. Although this is after the war, I'm trying to. I'm getting it mixed. I think I'm getting it mixed up. I'm trying to think if he had the Berserker armor before
the war or
after the war. I think he had before the war. Okay, so before the war, I believe this is where he goes on like his journey to he meets Shriek, goes to her village, meets her sensei.
You're right.
This
is before the war.
This is where Guts gets the Berserker armor. This is where Isidro gets the Salamander dagger. It's where Serpico gets the Wind rapier. I believe that's his weapon. And
I love Serpico's little dagger, man. It looks so badass.
He's one of my favorite characters.
Isidro. I'm sorry, Isidro. Getting that small sword.
Isidro and Farnese are two characters where I hated them when I met them, and by the end of the story, I absolutely loved them. Because
I love Farnese.
Isidro is Guts. He's just more of like a little shit than like a closed off person. Isidro didn't go through what Guts did, but like they're kind of like the same person. Isidro is like
just a little more cocky, he's a more of a talkative like asshole than Guts was this quiet asshole.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one reason why like Guts stays with or keeps Isidro around so much is he sees himself in Isidro. And we also see like the confrontation with I should say confrontation, that's a bad word. The interaction with Shriek's teacher and the Skull Knight. They have a prior history together. And we find out later, but like the Skull Knight used to be the former owner of the Berserker armor, and Skull Knight's there to like warn the teacher, don't let this happen to Guts, because it happened to me. Like the path that Guts is going down is the path that I went through,
and he has the right amount of darkness to where it could happen again.
And we find out who Skull Knight is in Fantasia, which is, oh my god, it's so good. And then from there we get the war, and then the fight, and then my favorite part of the Millennium Falcon arc is Falconia, and just the idea of Falconia.
So let's get into what did Griffith do anything wrong?
So now we are at the stage where the 100-Year War is over. Midland has defeated the Kushian army. We have essentially what's the right word to use? Sort of a euphoria of a city where it's not just humans.
Yeah, we have it's supernatural creatures,
but also sort of like other people from around the world.
That too.
Coming in here, because you see it in the war that Griffith has allies from all across different countries, and it's like mixing of races, cultures. All of this is in Falconia, and then for the first time in 100 years, Midland has peace. So, do you value Falconia as a world with no violence, prosperity, no war? Was that worth the eclipse?
I think it's the Thanos thing. Of how when Thanos does the snap, like we see all these creatures come back to like the MCU, and we see all of the food and everything restored, like the ozone, all that stuff. We even saw with our world when we went in lockdown, where shit is getting restored. So was all of this death and destruction worth it? I can't say it is, because I don't support what Thanos did. Like, is the justification of violence worth the peace? No. Am I happy that the peace is there? Yes, but I don't think it was worth the cost, because so much death and destruction, so many people lost their lives. You didn't give humanity a chance to maybe make it possible, and you're the reason why a lot of this evil shit has taken place. Yeah. Like, I understand the world was at war before you, but after you, the world is this place with monsters and just evil shit. So you're the reason why. The least you could do is give us this peaceful city.
Yeah, but because now the thing is, we have these monsters in the world, but they're not killing humans. They are living amongst. Our world and the astral world are now connected at a point. Yeah. There's a scene where there's like a few panels where like people are starting to randomly see giants, like winged people, dragons,
winged creatures. Yeah,
these mythological creatures are now entering the human world essentially, but they're at peace. They all follow Griffith, or what we later find out is more of they're following Femto.
Yeah, the God Hand.
Yeah, and really, this is the other debate of we haven't really touched on Griffith as a character, but
okay, yeah, let's do it.
This is the debate because we find out that Griffith is essentially two people. There's the human form Griffith, there's the God Hand Femto. During the eclipse, while Griffith is the one who said, like, I sacrifice,
it was Femto that did all
Femto that does everything. And we later see in the Fantasia arc that it's not like a split personality. It is legit two different people.
Yeah.
Whenever it is a full moon, Griffith sort of changes.
In terms of
he disappears, and where does Griffith go? Who does he have who is he? And at the same time, whenever there's a full moon, we get the Moonlight Child. And so it brings to the question, is the Moonlight Child actually Griffith?
Okay.
Because while the demon child from the Conviction arc is more, I think it's kind of heavily cited that it is Femto and Casca's child.
Yeah.
The Moonlight Child is Guts and Casca's child, and the soul of that child is Griffith. And so it's I don't know if it's more of like along the lines of like when Casca was pregnant, she was supposed to have twins,
that sort of thing. Yeah.
It's a different world, so it kind of doesn't like
work in our way. Yeah, for sure.
But it's kind of, I feel like it's kind of like hinted like that was the case. She had twins with two different like fathers, essentially.
And so my thing is, if they're two different people, then you have to, Griffith still did something wrong for the fact that he's the one who triggered the birth of Femto.
Correct. Yeah. The eclipse is Griffith's fault. He had the choice at the time of the eclipse to say, I sacrifice, and sacrifice his team to become Femto, or he could have chosen to die. And then we don't know what would have happened, but essentially Femto wouldn't have been created. Femto is, while there are 4 other God Hand members, they've essentially been waiting for Femto.
To be the leader.
A new God Hand happens every, I think it's 218 years. And they have been assembling essentially their crew for this event. Before Femto, it's shown that Void was the leader of God Hand. But then once like the Bailet that Griffith uses was like known, it was the Bailet of the King or something like that. That
the one that shows if Femto is coming or whatever.
It's in the books. It's faith that Femto is coming. Femto will lead us for whatever 218 times 5 is, 1,000 some years.
Yeah.
But
that's why I don't know if you know who Rob Banks is. That's why I hate the fact that
I know who Rob Banks is.
I hate the fact that he calls his alter ego Femto, because it's like, bro, you're choosing the evil one. Like if you're even gonna choose Griffith at all, okay, whatever. But you're choosing Femto.
Yeah, like you base your rap personality off of
the rapist Femto,
one of the most evil people, because it's Griffith who is doing Falconia. It is Griffith who wants the kingdom for peace.
Yeah,
it's not Femto. Femto is a God Hand member leader, and he doesn't care about this. But
nope. And that makes sense why earlier when I was asking you about why Griffith hold on, my bad, I'm losing it, but I'm gonna get it back. Why Griffith keeps going after these humanly intentions is because they're two different people, and Griffith still wants that. But Femto, the god, he doesn't give a fuck about all this.
Yeah,
it's Griffith's desire for this kingdom, for the Charlotte thing to become a king. That's still his dream, like you're saying earlier.
Yeah, because Femto is in the astral world, so he can't exist on the human world, because the only time we saw him is when Guts goes to the astral world and Black Swordsman. And then when we're in the eclipse, when the eclipse happens, that's not in the human world. That's in the astral world. So what's happening now is the astral world is meshing with the human world. And so I think Femto is trying to get this connection where he can become essentially ruler of both worlds. but we never get to that point. And I don't know if that's essentially what Femto was trying to do, but like the God Hand has terrible intentions. So I'm kind of just like leaning on that's the case of like what they were trying to do.
That goes back to the if this tragedy doesn't happen to Mira, like do we find out Femto's true intentions and his true plan?
Yeah. I would I don't know if
it's time to talk about that, the theory.
Well, I would like to. I don't know if there's anything else that you'd want to touch on this arc specifically, because
that's pretty much it.
Because then we get into the last arc, which is Fantasia, which I believe the last chapter of Berserk ends the arc. Okay. Like I think it ends the arc perfectly. So now we're at the last published arc of Fantasia, where Guts kind of gets like a hint of how to save Casca's psyche. If he's able to go to this land of elves where there's like magic and stuff, that they can sort of
that's what I was talking about earlier, and fix her mind. And I forget who goes, and I don't. It's Franchise.
It's Farnese and Sharik.
And it's to wipe her mind almost.
Yeah,
give her therapy.
Because they get this idea because Guts loses himself in the Berserker armor during a fight, and Sharik has to go into, I think they call it like the astral plane is the verbiage that they use. And she essentially has to find Guts's psyche and pull him out of the armor, because the armor took, because like that's the negative effect of the Berserker armor is you're superhuman,
but all of your rage and darkness comes out and takes over.
It essentially kills you. And then we find out that the Skull King, the reason why he's the Skull King is because he got taken over by the Berserker armor. The Berserker armor essentially killed him, and he lost himself to like the madness and the power and stuff like that. And so they get this idea that they're able to grab psyches and stuff like that, and they head over to the island, the
land,
the
place of the elves. And basically when they get her out, she's still having trauma and recollections of all the shit that happened. She's still not really the same.
And it's my favorite panel of Berserk. It's the foreshadowing since the Conviction arc of why Casca keeps saying ooh, ooh. That's like the only word that she can say. And so we find out in her psyche, in this dream state that she's in, that the dog of, what's it called? The dog of madness or whatever that you see as Guts, that's who she envisions Guts as in her psyche. And Guts is protecting her and he's barking. So the only words that Casca... the only words that she knows in her psyche is the noise that she's hearing, which is Guts barking. And I thought that foreshadow, like you just
that's
think that
crazy.
You think that she's just like kind of brain dead and she's just like mumbling her words. No, she's not. She is reenacting what she's hearing in her psyche, which is Guts. The whole time it's Guts.
That's crazy.
It's great because the whole time after with the Conviction art, the whole thing with Guts is Casca. And it's like this is why I say it's the best romance ever. These two are like the whole time is like it's their relationship. It's what's keeping them together. It's what's keeping Guts going into the next day.
And what's keeping her alive.
And it's what's keeping her alive. And I think what we see in Fantasia with her coming back to her senses, however, the
sight of Guts triggers the trauma.
The sight of Guts, it's like the PTSD that she sees in him, where she longs for Guts, but like she can't.
Because it just brings back everything that happened.
It's heartbreaking. The whole since the eclipse, you were waiting for this moment, and it's handled so well. And like
he doesn't give it to you.
I'm so happy. Casca's back. Like we're waiting, and it's like they can't be together yet. I feel like I do think that they will go there, but like I think it does how it handles trauma, how it handles PTSD and all that stuff is just it's so well done because
can't be easily given. Like they have to work for that. Like it's anyone who goes through trauma, and like you said, it's a process. Like you can't just see the person you love and y'all went through something and expect everything to be normal. No, you have to work at it. And it's something that you have to work at daily. You may have step backs, you may have regression. And it's like, that's the beautiful thing about this writing and the way he handled it, because he didn't give it to us. He made it a challenge.
Yes,
which really reflects life.
And it's like how like Guts handles the situation, I think, is like so well done as well. I mean, there is a reason why he is my favorite character in anime history or manga history or any form of fiction history, is the conviction on how he handles himself in the situations of never giving up. And then towards in this instance, it's never about him. It's at this point he has a new family that he loves. Like he essentially treats Shariq as his daughter. Isidro is like, I don't, maybe like
little brother.
Kind of, yeah, more of like a little brother than like a son, but like he like gives him more shit. He's able to rely on Farnese as a caregiver, along with now being she's learning magic through Shariq, and then Serpico is more of like the muscle, the side muscle. He can fight. They have a duel earlier where like Serpico really shows off. Like
Serpico's kind of like prowess. That character from part 1 who gave his life up for
he's like judo.
Yeah,
he's like judo, and judo's more like tactical, where like, you know, like the throwing knives and daggers and stuff like that. Serpico can go like hand to hand. You see him fight Guts, and it's pretty evenly matched, and Serpico loses because he's they're fighting in like a bunch of pillars, and they're like, well, if I just dance around the pillars, Guts can't get me. And then Guts is like, well, I'm supposed to swing through all the pillars. and that's sort of like how Serpico like respects Guts at the time, where he kind of viewed Guts as like this he's a big strong guy, but he's a dummy. Like I'll outsmart him, I'll outwit him, and I'll win. And then he gets like a reality check, like, oh no, Guts is the real deal. Like, and
how do you feel about the last page of the tear coming down the Moonlight Child's eye?
Yeah, so this is like the confirmation. I personally think that the Moonlight Child is Griffith. There's a scene earlier where I want to say it's the Millennium Falcon arc, but it could be Conviction, where Griffith is staring out the window and we see a full moon and he sort of just like disappears.
That's Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, and so he kind of just disappears whenever it's that, and then the child shows up when it's a full moon. So to me, that emphasizes that the spirit of Griffith
lives on,
is the Moonlight Child. And what I think is going to start, because I personally think that the Berserk is one arc away from finishing the story.
Okay. Okay. So you think it's a lot closer than it appears. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're all. Personally, I think we're one arc away, maybe two, but I don't know if you've ever thought about how you would want Berserk to end, but I have thought about it for
Give
hours.
It to me. Give it to us. That's what we're here for.
So this is how I would want
Berserk to end.
We get the confrontation where I think Femto starts having a more of a presence in the human world.
He has to.
And we find out that, or it's confirmed that the Moonlight Child is Griffith. So we have like this confrontation under the moonlight where it's Griffith versus Femto in some way. And because of the triggering, okay, so in the Conviction arc, that's kind of what triggers how the astral world can start coming over into our world. I think like this confrontation, this fight, however, is what's going to like reverse it.
Is separate them.
And separate the two. And I think the best way to do it is if Griffith sacrifices himself to save the human world. And I think that's more of along the lines of using like the magical abilities of the Moonlight Child and sort of closing a rift and not allowing Femto to come into the human world, and it'll stop like the apostles. And it's something along those lines where Griffith realizes what he did at the time was wrong. Like he got it's because the Guts goes through the same thing in Golden Age, where he has this friends and family and everything like that, but he doesn't know what he wants, and then he leaves, and then he realizes the whole time he just wanted a family. Griffith, the whole time in his head, I want a kingdom, I need a kingdom, I'll do anything to get a kingdom. And then he gets the kingdom, and it doesn't mean anything if Guts isn't there. It doesn't mean anything if the Band of the Hawk isn't there. And so I think that's kind of like,
that's a beautiful ending. The way it, like you said, if Guts is part one, how Guts found out at the end, since you opened it, Griffith, now you closed it and you give your life for it.
Yeah, and that's sort of the theme of like realizing what is important. Like in our life, like you could be a billionaire, but if you're unhappy, that money means
doesn't
nothing.
matter. Yeah, facts.
And
And then on top of that, you can have Guts fight with him to like have Guts fight Femto with Griffith to have like the reconnection, even strengthening that idea more of, if I'm not with Guts, it doesn't matter. And the fact that he has this one last fight with Guts could give him that closure he needs to say, okay, I got it one more time. Now I can end it.
Yeah. So ideally, in my picture, in my mind, how the fight would go is that Guts is fighting Femto in his Berserker armor, along with Skull Knight.
Ooh, nice.
I think at some point in this, I do think Skull Knight at this point actually wants to die. We see that at the end of Fantasia, where he sees his wife for the first time, like the spirit of his wife, and for like 1,000 years
he wants to go to the other side,
and he wants to go. He's done. Like he's fulfilling his prophecy. So I would love to see it like in a way of like Skull Knight giving the sword to like Griffith, and then like Griffith and Guts like stabbing Femto with Skull Knight's sword and the Dragon Slayer, and sort of like defeating that. And then because Femto dies, that also means like the spirit of Griffith has to die, since they're the same person.
Same thing, yeah. And
like we kind of get like a heart-touching moment, and Griffith goes away, and it's done. And then literally happily ever after. Like how great it would be if Guts could get like 8 hours of sleep. Like that would be like the best chapter.
That'd be awesome for him. Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. One of my favorite chapters in Berserk is when he meets Shariq's sensei for the first time, and they put seals on them to protect them from his branding. So I think it's for 3 nights, Guts doesn't have to fight monsters at night. And Guts gets 3 nights of sleep. And it's like one of my favorite chapters in it, because he's just like, he's so happy that he can just sleep, that he doesn't have to worry about protecting everybody, because he gets like an hour of sleep a day, because whenever it turns night, then the demons come and fight him.
Out. Yeah. And he has to fight. Yeah, true. In that ending, would you want him and Casca to embrace?
That would be, I mean, you're asking for like the perfect scene. Casca is able to
finally erase
because like I think you have to wait till the next full moon, which is like what, I don't know, every couple months or something like that. So like it'll make sense in the time of like grieving, getting over the trauma or of some sort. And you know, they have their new family. Like Casca is connected to like Farnese as like a best friend at this point.
Like you said, Shariq's their daughter, almost.
Shariq, yeah, Isidro. It's like heartwarming in a dark, bleak world, but like that's what matters. Like,
yeah,
the themes and the elements of Berserk is like forgiveness, family, friends, like not putting yourself first, and doing things for others. And at the end of it, they all can just come together and not have to worry about that anymore.
And I think due to the fact that it's such a dark story and we went through all this, I think a happy ending is the only like right thing. And like you said, after we've gotten all this violence, all this gore, to see Guts sleep for 8 hours would be a beautiful chapter. Like after all of that, that makes sense. And I could tell you thought about that for a while. That's an awesome ending. Do you think we get an ending?
That's the tough part. So right now we're sort of in limbo where by now, if they were not going to continue Berserk, they would have
announced it. Yeah, you're right.
And
especially since it's a year, it was just a year when we released this.
It's been about a year. Yep. So there's been like Miura's on record saying it, that he wants, like, his goal in life was to finish Berserk. It's kind of hinted that his assistants know the manuscript on how he wanted to end it. And I think it would be, it's up to the people who know, but if that's really what he wanted, I would be really happy if we get it in a form of a novel, or if they do want to illustrate it. I know that Miura literally made another manga for his assistants to make, to help him with the artwork of Berserk. It's like a 70 chapter thing that Miura did,
almost like their training program. Like,
correct. Yeah,
that sounds like in case anything happens to me, y'all can draw it.
Yeah, it's like that. And like there's not many stories that would be like, One Piece is like the only thing that comes in my head where like like Oda wants the fans to get to know or wants to know what the One Piece is or whatever in the ending of One Piece. And Berserk, I feel like, is like the only other manga that can kind of do that.
Yeah.
That where it has such an effect on everything. So many different forms of like media, like the Dark Souls games are made because of Berserk. The main character,
the most recent
Guts.
one, like the most recent one had prisoner Griffith in it. It had the berserker armor. It had the sword. Like Elden Ring had all of that.
Like Berserk is more than just a manga.
Yeah, it is.
It's like
it's inspired fiction. Yeah,
it's the idea of light in a dark world, or like struggling, getting through, and it has like a very positive message for such a dark story. And to me, like, that's why I would hope that we can continue that part of Miura is Berserk, where he died, and part of the light is continuing his legacy.
Yeah, true.
But that's if that's what is wanted. Like,
because if he doesn't want that, then we respect his wishes the other way. In the final page, like you said, is the perfect ending to the arc.
Yeah, it all depends. Like, I can only base off what I read on the internet and like the sources that I follow and stuff like that. If that's what they're saying right now, I'm gonna take it with like a grain of salt. And that's kind of like where my viewpoint is. If it comes out where Miura didn't want that, then I would say I think what Berserk does where it ended is okay. It's fine. Because Berserk is more than just the story. It's like the themes and the elements and stuff like that, where that's what resonates me with Berserk is who these people are.
And the development of these characters, like 100%.
Yeah, so it's hard to say, but to me, like, that's kind of where I'm standing, and I hope it's done in like a novel version. I think we said before in the other one where I think the art is Miura, and I know his assistants help him, but I mean, this is his creation.
Yeah.
If it's just putting words to a page, I don't think that like hinders anything that what Miura is, but I think the art is something that's
strictly him,
really individualized to him and himself. So
and it's funny that we talking about this now, because and you asked me, I never thought about how I would want it to end, being that I'm such a new fan. I'm just in it like along for the ride for whatever happens. And what you pitched just now sounded perfect to me. And whatever I'm with you, whatever the artist or whatever Mira wanted, that's what I'm with. If you want to continue it, cool. If not, cool. I'm just appreciative that we got this ride. And I think that's very Berserk in itself. Appreciative for what you were given, and whether or not it continues or not, that's beside the point. Cherish the memory of what you have had, because you don't know if it's gone forever. And if we were to get art, I'd be cool with it. If it's a novel, I'm cool with it. Like I said, I'm cool with whatever his estate decides that they want to do. I'm rocking with. But in terms of seinen, I have to ask you, obviously you think this is the greatest manga of all time.
I think this is the greatest piece of fiction ever
of all time. Okay. I've
read books, all that stuff. This is the best everything I've ever experienced.
Where would you compare it? Where would you say it's number one? Where do you think like 20th Century Boys and Monster and all of that fall in line under this?
Yeah, I think it's all about like how you connect with the story. So one reason why, I'm gonna get a little personal here, but
go ahead.
One reason why Berserk means so much to me is I read it a year after my dad passed away, and it was about, you know, I was in a bad spot, you know, and all this stuff, and it really showed me like, not showed me, but like it's a story about like moving on, like maybe tomorrow will be better. You know, right now sucks, but it can get better over time. And now I'm in a fantastic space. And I think Berserk is like one thing that like really resonated with me. Is one reason why Guts resonates with me so well, is literally like making the best out of like the worst situation possible.
Yeah, and it helped your life, like legitimately.
It did. And I was depressed, and honestly, like it did more to me than any antidepressant could ever do. Like it was just like a wonderful read. When I finished it, like I was like euphoric. I was like, I was so happy of like what I read, the journey that I went on, and it really didn't like make me appreciate more. I got way closer with my mom, and like the community that I'm involved with my podcast and stuff like that, and like it made me like really realize like, you know, things could be gone tomorrow, but like we have like really good things going on like right now.
Yeah.
And like it
100%.
made me like really like I'm like tighter with my friends because it seems silly that like Berserk is like the reason
No, because that is awesome. That is what it's supposed to be, man. Like, and I'm sure that's what Mira wanted. Like, if that's what any creator would want, is for their art, what they strive their life to do to affect someone. And the fact that it did that, that shows that he's immortal. I believe that. Like, One Piece really, like when I heard that in One Piece, like a man doesn't die when he gets shot or when he gets stabbed or anything. A man dies when he's forgotten. Like I just lost my grandpa like maybe like 8 months ago.
Yeah.
And it was tough, but like that thought of he's not dead because he's gone. No, he's dead when we forget him. And that's something that resonates with me. And that's something that I think Oda will be immortal. Mira's immortal through what you went through. Your dad's immortal because you remember him. And every time you read Berserk, you'll have that thought of like him.
100%.
Like that's the people you love living onward. And I think that's what Mira wanted. I think that at its core what Berserk is about.
100%. And I think that's why we see it as, really, if you go on like my anime list or like other sites like that, it is the #1 ranked manga of all time. I think when people say the best manga ever created, I feel like Berserk is in like every person's list. Like there are so many different themes, different elements, different like ideas that Berserk presents to people that they could resonate to. For me, it was Guts as a character, as myself as an individual, that really resonated with me, but that's not the case for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Berserk does so well, is that there's so many things that you can latch on of.
And I think it's beautiful that you think that at first, oh, it's just this gory fight. But when you get into it and get to know the characters and get to read the themes, that's when you find out the beauty of it.
Yeah, my favorite anime of all time is Violet Evergarden. If I told you that my favorite manga was Berserk,
you wouldn't believe it.
You wouldn't believe it, but like it holds such a special place in my heart because of what the story does. That's the same thing with why I resonate with Violet Evergarden so much, is the story it tells. It resonates with me so much. And other people, even if you don't attach yourself to an idea or a theme of Berserk, it has the artwork to back it up. It has like the characters to back it up. It has the story to back it up. And it's just an overall, to me, like when I think masterpiece, I think Berserk. Like I would be shocked if any point in my lifetime that something would top Berserk.
That's awesome.
I watch a lot of content.
Yeah, you do.
Like Berserk, if Berserk is a 10 and Violet Evergarden is my favorite like anime of all time, Violet Evergarden's like a 7. Like that's how much I think Berserk is like above.
Wow, that says a lot.
Like like nothing comes close to like what Berserk is to me and what I feel about it.
And I think that's why you were the perfect person to have this conversation with. I'm super glad we had this conversation.
Me too. This is great.
I thank you for sharing that story. I think that made this even better. And the fact that you mentioned what I thought would probably be the next thing we talked about when we do another one of these, which is Violet Evergarden, or we'll do one of mine. We'll figure it out. But you made me read. You were the one who got me to watch Violet Evergarden and really changed my view of slice of life. So I think that would be apropos for us, because that story is beautiful in itself.
That's a tough story for me. I'm not gonna lie. When we recorded our podcast for the show and the movie, I cried on both episodes.
I wouldn't want to make you cry.
That's just like, but that's what like a great story does. Is
true.
It pulls something out of me that I'm not a crier, really. I would say, like, I'd say of all like 700 plus anime I've ever watched, I've probably cried like 4 times.
I was about to say, like, that's one of the few that definitely made me, like, I can count on my hand. Like you said, 4. I have 2. Violet Evergarden's 1. And the other one, I don't even know what the other one. I have 1. Violet Evergarden.
Yeah. It's just like Violet Evergarden. When I was watching it, I even mentioned this. I had to go work out after watching it because I had to like force myself with endorphins because I was feeling so shitty that like I need to feel something happy right now. And I went and worked out for like 2 hours after watching Violet Evergarden, because that show just
2-hour pump.
Which is funny because somebody can watch Violet Evergarden and feel nothing.
Yeah, true.
It's a really interesting story, and I think there are a lot of parallels to Violet and Berserk, which is pretty funny to say. But I mean, those are the stories that attach to me. It's why I keep talking about them over and over and over again, because they mean so much to me. And I just think that what it does in its elements is just incredible.
Hell yeah. Well, this has been awesome. I'm glad we got part 2 done. Pete, tell the people where they can follow you at, tell them where they can get your amazing podcast at and all that good stuff.
Yeah. If you want to follow me, I'm most active on Twitter. What do you say, Annie? What do you say, ANI on Twitter? I also host a weekly variety podcast, audio and visual content on YouTube, and then anywhere podcasts are found. That's What Do You Say Anime.
Y'all make sure y'all go follow Pete. And if you like this, let us know, because like I said, me and Pete want to do more of these. I want to get him to do a wrestling something with me where we talk about wrestling at some point.
I can't wait, because you right now is what I was like a few years ago.
I'm a newbie, man.
Where I got into wrestling not because of my I like randomly turned on like a Raw on like a Monday.
That's exactly what happened. It was a SmackDown. I randomly turned on a SmackDown.
And I was just like, I watched The Rock when I was a kid. I watched Stone Cold when I was a kid, stuff like that. But like I grew out of it. And then when I started watching, I was just like, why is this fun? Like, why am I having a good time? And that was what you are going through, is what I was like 4 years ago. And I kind of got really into it for a while. Now I'm more of like a casual watcher, but it's funny seeing like the parallels between me and you right now.
Bro, it's awesome. Like literally, my girlfriend, when she first heard I was doing it, she's like, "What? It's fake. What are you doing?" And then when she woke up, I had WrestleMania Backlash on, and she was looking at it, and she was like, "Wait, some of this can't be fake." I was like, they're actually taking these hits. Like the matches are predetermined, but the athleticism in it is real. Like,
yeah, it's a story. They're telling a narrative, and how they tell it through their performance is art to me.
Yep,
and
I agree.
When you see the best of the best do their thing, it's captivating.
Beautiful.
It's like I don't listen to like orchestra music, but when I hear an orchestra, like I can tell that like this is really well done. Like, this music sounds great. It's sort of like that when I'm watching wrestling. Like, oh, these are like masters of their craft. Like, this is really interesting to watch somebody at that level perform. And whether it's fake or not, it's the experience, and it's just a wonderful time.
And that's something we'll definitely talk about as well. But y'all make sure y'all go follow Pete. Make sure you check out his podcast. And like I said, if you like this, we'll have some stuff coming for you in the future. Don't worry about it. Follow me at BrosWhoThink. Follow BrosWhoThink. Oh no, follow me at LimbyWT. Follow BrosWhoThink at BrosWhoThink for all of the amazing BrosWhoThink content. Manga Melee just dropped its 4th episode. Make sure you check that out. Anime Talk will be out with its latest episode this upcoming Tuesday. Check that out. And then the One Piece manga reviews are back this week with a crazy review. So make sure y'all check that out. And for all non-anime and manga content, you can find all of that on the network as well. But for Pete, my name is Lynden. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Until next time, have a good one and peace.
Peace out.